I found the empty velvet box on a Tuesday morning, the kind of morning where sunlight filters through lace curtains and coffee smells like a promise of normalcy. But there was nothing normal about the hollow space where my mother's sapphire ring used to rest, the one she wore every day of her 52-year marriage, the one she pressed into my palm 3 hours before she died. Before we continue, please subscribe and hit that notification bell, and let us know where in the world you're watching from in the comments. Now, back to my story. My name is Catherine, and I'm 63 years old. I've spent most of my life being the kind of woman people describe as accommodating, patient, understanding, the peacekeeper. For 40 years, I poured myself into making sure everyone around me had what they needed. My late husband, Richard, my daughter, Vanessa, my son, Thomas, who at least had the decency to call on my birthday. But that Tuesday morning, staring at that empty box, something cracked open inside my chest. Not my heart breaking that had happened so many times I'd lost count. This was different. This was the sound of a door slamming shut on the woman I used to be. The jewelry box sat on my dresser where it always had, in the bedroom of the house I'd lived in for 38 years. The house where Richard and I had brought Vanessa home as a newborn. The house where I'd served Christmas dinners and hosted birthday parties and pretended everything was fine even when it wasn't. The master bedroom still held traces of Richard's cologne, though he'd been gone for 7 years. Some mornings I swore I could still hear his laugh echoing through the hallways. I picked up the empty box with trembling fingers. Inside, the velvet had that crushed, disturbed look, like someone had rifled through it hastily. My mother's sapphire ring, my grandmother's pearl necklace, the diamond tennis bracelet Richard had given me on our 25th anniversary, the one he'd saved for 2 years to afford, the emerald earrings I'd worn on my wedding day, all of it. Gone. I stood there for what felt like an hour but was probably only minutes, my mind racing through possibilities. A break-in? But nothing else in the house was disturbed. The television was still mounted on the wall. My laptop sat untouched on the kitchen counter. Even the cash I kept in the desk drawer for emergencies, $200 in 20s, was still there. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Vanessa. "Mom, we need to talk. Coming over at noon." My stomach dropped. I knew. Somehow, in that moment, I knew. I've never been the kind of mother who lived through her children. I had my own career as a school librarian for 30 years, my own friends, my own quiet joys. But Vanessa was my first baby, and there's something about your first child that burrows into your heart in ways you can't explain. From the moment the nurse placed her in my arms, I was hers. Completely, devastatingly, hers. Richard used to joke that I was too soft with her. "Cat," he'd say, using the nickname only he was allowed. "You're going to spoil that girl rotten." But I couldn't help it. When she cried, I wanted to fix it. When she wanted something, I wanted to give it to her. When she hurt, I bled. Looking back now, I can see all the warning signs I ignored. The way she'd throw tantrums when she didn't get her way, even as a teenager. The eye rolls when I asked about her day. The increasing distance after her father died. Like my grief was an inconvenience to her busy life. The way she only called when she needed something: money, favors, someone to blame. But mothers are excellent at making excuses. She's just going through a phase. She's stressed with work. She's still processing her father's death. I told myself these stories for years, clinging to memories of the little girl who used to climb into my lap and say, "Mommy, you're my best friend." When did that little girl disappear? Or had I invented her entirely? Vanessa arrived at 12:07 p.m., 7 minutes late, which was early for her. She swept through my front door in a cloud of expensive perfume and designer clothes, a sleek black jumpsuit that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, heels that clicked authoritatively on my hardwood floors. Her dark hair was blown out perfectly, her makeup flawless. She looked like she'd stepped out of a magazine, polished and untouchable. She was beautiful. She'd always been beautiful. Sometimes I wondered if that was part of the problem, if the world had been too quick to give her things, too eager to please her, too willing to forgive her because of that dazzling smile. "Mom," she said, not bothering with a hug. She barely looked at me as she tossed her designer purse on my couch. We need to talk about the wedding. The wedding, of course. For the past 9 months, Vanessa's upcoming nuptials to her fiancé Brandon had been the center of her universe. She called him her soulmate, though I'd only met him twice, once at a stiff dinner where he spent the entire time on his phone, and once when they'd stopped by for 10 minutes to show me her engagement ring, a 3-carat diamond that must have cost a fortune. I'd been happy for her, truly. Despite everything, I still wanted my daughter to be happy. But the wedding planning had become all-consuming. Every conversation was about venues and guest lists and floral arrangements. She'd already changed the date twice, upgraded from a country club to a luxury resort, and expanded the guest list from 75 to 250. "Vanessa," I said carefully, my voice steady despite the hurricane building inside me. "Where are my jewelry pieces?" She blinked at me, and for a split second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Fear? It was gone before I could identify it, replaced by a practiced look of confusion. "What are you talking about?" "My mother's sapphire ring, my grandmother's pearls, my anniversary bracelet. They're gone from my jewelry box." She sighed, a long, dramatic exhale that made me feel like I was the unreasonable one. "Oh, that. Yeah, I was going to tell you." My heart started pounding. "Tell me what?" "I sold them," she said, as casually as if she were discussing the weather. She moved to my kitchen, opened my refrigerator like it was hers, pulled out a bottle of water. I needed the money for the wedding. The venue required a deposit, and Brandon and I were short. I stared at her. You sold them?" "Mom, relax. It's not that big of a deal." She took a sip of water, leaning against my kitchen counter with the ease of someone who couldn't possibly understand what she'd just confessed. "They were just sitting in your room collecting dust. You never wore them. I got a great price too. Almost $15,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. $15,000. For pieces that were priceless to me. For my mother's legacy. For the tangible evidence that Richard had loved me once. Those weren't yours to sell," I whispered. "Oh, come on." She rolled her eyes at me. "Don't be dramatic. You were never going to wear them again. You barely leave the house anymore, and it's not like you were going to pass them down to anyone. Thomas doesn't want them, and I needed them now. For my wedding. The most important day of my life. In case you forgot. You took them without asking." My voice was shaking now. "You went into my room, into my private things, and you stole from me." "Stole?" She laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. "God, Mom, that's a little harsh. I'm your daughter. Everything you have is going to be mine eventually anyway, right? I took my inheritance a little early. I couldn't breathe. The kitchen felt too small, too hot. My vision was swimming. Besides," she continued, examining her manicured nails with bored interest, "after everything you've put me through, after all the ways you've failed me as a mother, I think you owe me this. Consider it back payment for my childhood." "Failed you?" I repeated, my voice barely audible. "What are you talking about?" "Oh, please." She set down the water bottle with a sharp crack against my granite countertop. "Do you want the whole list? How about the fact that you and Dad never supported my dreams? I wanted to be a dancer, but you made me take piano lessons. I wanted to go to UCLA, but you convinced me to stay local. I wanted to travel after college, but you guilted me into getting a real job. Every single choice I made, you undermined me. I felt like I was falling through space. Vanessa, that's not what happened. We supported everything you wanted to do. You quit dance after 3 weeks because you didn't like the teacher. You chose the local college because UCLA didn't accept you. We never stopped you from traveling. You decided to take the job at the marketing firm because you wanted the salary. That's your version," she snapped. "My version is that I had a controlling mother who couldn't let me be my own person. And now, when I'm finally building my own life, finally having the wedding I deserve, you're trying to make me feel guilty about taking some old jewelry you never even cared about?" "I cared about them." My voice cracked. "They were from my mother, from your father. They were all I had left of them. Well, now they're paying for my wedding. And honestly, Mom, you should be grateful I'm letting you come. After the way you've treated Brandon, constantly judging him, never making an effort. I met him twice. Exactly. You couldn't even pretend to be interested in the man I'm going to marry. You're so wrapped up in your own little world, your own grieving, your own problems. Do you know how exhausting it is to have a mother who's always sad, always lonely, always needing something from me? The words were like knives, each one finding its mark with surgical precision. I realized, standing in my kitchen while my daughter dismantled my reality, that this wasn't new. This resentment had been building for years, maybe decades. I'd just been too afraid to see it. Get out, I heard myself say. She blinked, surprised. What? Get out of my house? Mom, don't be ridiculous. I said, get out. My voice was louder now, steadier. You stole from me. You betrayed my trust. You insulted me in my own home. I want you to leave. Now. For a moment, she just stared at me, her mouth slightly open. Then she grabbed her purse, her expression hardening into something cold and unfamiliar. Fine, she said, but don't expect an invitation to the wedding. And don't come crying to me when you die alone in this house with no one who cares about you. She slammed the door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. I stood in the kitchen for a long time after she left, listening to the silence. The picture frame had shattered, glass spreading across my floor like tiny crystals. It was a photo of Vanessa as a little girl, maybe 5 years old, her arms wrapped around my neck, both of us laughing at something long forgotten. I didn't cry. Not yet. I walked to my bedroom, sat on the edge of my bed, and opened my laptop. The first thing I did was call my son Thomas. He lived in Seattle with his wife Marcy and their 2 young daughters. We spoke every few weeks, usually on Sundays. He was busy with his life, his career in software engineering, his family. But he was kind. He was decent. He called me Mom, without resentment in his voice. Hey, Mom, he answered on the 3rd ring. This is a surprise. Everything okay? I told him everything. The missing jewelry, Vanessa's confession, her justifications, her cruel words. He was silent for a long time after I finished. Mom, he finally said, his voice tight with anger. That's theft. She stole from you. You could press charges. I'm not going to send my daughter to jail, I said automatically. Why not? She clearly has no problem hurting you. He paused. And for what it's worth, that whole story about you controlling her life? That's complete bullshit. You were the best mom. You supported both of us in everything we did. She's rewriting history to justify being a terrible person. His words were a balm I didn't know I needed. Thank you for saying that. It's the truth. Listen, Marcy and I have been talking, and we've noticed Vanessa's behavior getting worse over the years. The way she talks to you, the way she only calls when she needs money, the constant criticism. We've been worried. Why didn't you say anything? Because you love her, and we didn't want to make you feel like you had to choose between your kids. He sighed. But Mom, this crosses a line. You need to protect yourself. What's your plan? I looked at my laptop screen, at the document I'd already started typing. I'm making a list, I said slowly, of everything I've given her since she turned 18. Every rent payment I covered when she was between jobs, every car repair, every credit card bill I paid off, every expensive dinner, every shopping trip, every loan that was never repaid. I think it's time to add it all up. Good, Thomas said firmly. And Mom? Whatever you decide to do, Marcy and I support you. 100%. After we hung up, I continued working on my list. It took me 3 hours to go through old bank statements, credit card records, canceled checks. The numbers were staggering. Over the past 15 years, I had given Vanessa approximately $127,000. That didn't count the college tuition. I'd paid another $85,000 after scholarships and loans. That didn't count letting her live at home rent-free for 3 years after graduation. That didn't count the car I'd bought her when she turned 21. That didn't count the countless meals, the clothes, the trips, the emergencies. I'd been a widow for 7 years, living on Richard's life insurance, my pension from the school district, and Social Security. I wasn't wealthy, but I was comfortable. I'd been careful with money, lived modestly, saved where I could, all so I could help my children if they needed it. Vanessa had needed it constantly, and I'd given it willingly, lovingly, desperately trying to buy her affection. I realized now, trying to prove I was a good mother, trying to fill the void Richard had left. I'd been a fool. The second thing I did was hire a private investigator. His name was Patrick, a retired police detective recommended by my neighbor's son. He had a kind face and didn't judge me when I explained what I needed. "You want me to look into your daughter's fiancé?" he confirmed. "Something doesn't add up," I said. "She claims they needed $15,000 for a venue deposit, but I saw the venue website. The deposit is $5,000. Where did the other $10,000 go?" Patrick nodded. "I'll find out. Give me a week." The third thing I did was call a lawyer. Janet Chen had handled Richard's estate and was someone I trusted. I explained the situation, the stolen jewelry, Vanessa's attitude, my desire to protect my remaining assets. "Catherine," Janet said carefully, "I need to ask you something. Do you have a will?" "Yes. Richard and I did them together years ago. Everything is split evenly between Vanessa and Thomas. You should consider updating it. Given recent events, I've been thinking about that," I admitted. "I've been thinking about a lot of things." Janet was quiet for a moment. "You could also pursue criminal charges for the theft." "I don't want to do that. I understand. But you should know that what she did is a felony in this state. Grand theft. Even if you don't press charges, you have options. You could demand she return the jewelry or repay its value. You could sue her in civil court. You could make her face consequences." "I'll think about it," I said, but I already knew what I was going to do. The plan was forming slowly, carefully, like a photograph developing in solution, and it felt right in a way nothing had felt right in years. Patrick called me 6 days later. "Mrs. Morrison, I have some information you need to hear. Can we meet?" We met at a coffee shop downtown, the kind with exposed brick walls and overly complicated drink menus. Patrick slid a manila folder across the table. "Your daughter's fiancé, Brandon Ashworth, is not who she thinks he is. Or maybe she knows exactly who he is and doesn't care." I opened the folder. Inside were printed documents, photographs, credit reports. Brandon has been married before, twice. Both marriages ended in divorce within 2 years. Both ex-wives filed restraining orders citing financial manipulation and emotional abuse. He has a gambling problem, owes approximately $60,000 to various casinos in Nevada. He's been fired from 3 jobs in the last 5 years for embezzlement and fraud, though charges were never filed because the companies didn't want the publicity. I felt sick. Does Vanessa know any of this? That's hard to say. But here's the thing. He pulled out another document. Brandon filed for bankruptcy 18 months ago. His credit is destroyed. He can't get approved for a credit card, much less a mortgage or car loan. Everything they have, the apartment they rent, the car he drives, the luxury items, is in Vanessa's name. She's supporting him, I whispered. More than that, I traced some financial records. The $15,000 from your jewelry? $10,000 went to pay off Brandon's gambling debts. The other $5,000 did go to the venue, but only because they were behind on payments and about to lose it. Patrick leaned forward, his expression sympathetic. "Mrs. Morrison, your daughter is in a financially and emotionally abusive relationship. Brandon has isolated her from you. Notice how she's flipped all her childhood memories to make you the villain? Classic manipulative tactic. He's convinced her that she deserves this lavish wedding, this perfect life, and that anyone who questions it, including you, is the enemy." My hands were shaking. "What do I do?" "That depends. Do you want to save her, or do you want to save yourself?" It was a brutal question, but a fair one. "Can I do both?" I asked. "Maybe, but it's going to hurt. For both of you." I closed the folder. "Tell me what else you found." The wedding was scheduled for 3 weeks from Saturday, one of those rare October days that would hopefully be golden and perfect. The venue was the Riverside Manor, a restored historic estate with gardens and a ballroom and a price tag that made my teeth hurt. Vanessa had invited 250 guests. The budget, according to the detailed invoice Patrick had obtained, was $180,000. She and Brandon had paid approximately $30,000. The rest was being covered by loans, credit cards, and vendor payment plans that would take them years to pay off. It was financial suicide, and she didn't seem to care. I spent 3 days writing a letter. I revised it 17 times, deleting and rewriting, trying to find words that were honest without being cruel, clear without being heartless. Finally, I had something I could live with. Dear Vanessa, I've spent the last 2 weeks thinking about our relationship, about the woman you've become, about the choices we've both made. I need you to understand some things. When you were born, I made a promise to love you unconditionally, to protect you, to give you the best life I could. For 42 years, I've kept that promise. Even when it hurt, even when you pulled away, even when I knew, deep down, that I was enabling behavior that would eventually destroy you. I've given you $127,000 since you turned 18. I've paid your rent, your car insurance, your credit card bills, your emergency expenses. I did it because I loved you and because I wanted to help. But love without boundaries isn't love, it's self-destruction disguised as virtue. You sold my jewelry and said I owed you. You said I failed you as a mother, that I controlled you, that I was wrapped up in my own grief. Maybe some of that is true. Grief has made me smaller than I used to be. Losing your father broke something in me that never quite healed. But I was a good mother to you. I supported your dreams, celebrated your achievements, comforted your disappointments, and when you needed me to be your scapegoat, your villain, I accepted that role because I thought that's what mothers do. I was wrong. I've hired an investigator. I know about Brandon's history, his debts, his manipulation. I know he's convinced you that this wedding, this performance of perfection, is what you deserve. I know you're drowning in debt for a marriage that has very little chance of succeeding. I want to save you from this, but I can't save you from yourself. So, here's what's going to happen. I've updated my will. You are no longer my primary beneficiary. Thomas will inherit my estate, my house, my savings. You will receive a token amount $5,000 and not a penny more. I've also spoken with an attorney about the jewelry. The total value was approximately $40,000. You sold it for $15,000. I'm giving you 2 choices. Return the jewelry by purchasing equivalent replacements or repay me the full appraised value. You have 60 days. If you don't comply, I will pursue legal action. Furthermore, I will no longer be providing financial support of any kind. No loans, no gifts, no bailouts. When this wedding bankrupts you, I'm done being your ATM. I'm done being your emotional punching bag. I'm done sacrificing my peace for your approval. If you want a relationship with me, it will be on new terms, mutual respect, honest communication, accountability for your actions. No more gaslighting, no more manipulation, no more taking advantage of my love. If you can't meet those terms, then I wish you well, but we are done. I will always be your mother, but I no longer need to be your victim. Catherine. I sent the letter via certified mail, signature required. I also emailed a copy to her and to Brandon. I wanted there to be no confusion, no claims that she never received it. Then I called the wedding venue, Riverside Manor. This is Jessica speaking. How may I help you? Hello, my name is Catherine Morrison. I'm the mother of the bride for the Ashworth Morrison wedding on October 19th. Oh yes, we're so excited to host Vanessa's big day. What can I do for you? I need to inform you of something important. I've been told that I'm financially responsible for portions of this wedding. That's not accurate. I am not a co-signer on any contracts, and I am not authorizing any charges to my name or credit. If Vanessa or Brandon have represented otherwise, those are fraudulent claims. There was a pause. I'll need to check our records. One moment. I waited, my heart pounding. Mrs. Morrison, I'm showing here that you're listed as an emergency contact and backup payment method. Your credit card information is on file. My blood went cold. I never authorized that. I never gave my credit card information to anyone at your venue. Oh, Jessica's voice became cautious. This is concerning. It looks like this was added to the contract about 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, right after Vanessa sold my jewelry. That's credit card fraud, I said clearly. I'm notifying you now that I did not authorize this, and I will not be responsible for any charges. I'm also placing a fraud alert with my credit card company. If you attempt to charge my card, I will dispute it and file a police report. Mrs. Morrison, I understand, but we have a contract with your daughter, which doesn't include me. I suggest you verify all payment information with Vanessa and Brandon directly. And Jessica? You should probably confirm that all your deposits have actually been paid. I hung up before she could respond. Next, I called my credit card company, canceled my card, and filed fraud alerts on all my accounts. Then I called my bank and did the same. The final call was the hardest. I dialed Vanessa's number. It rang 4 times before she answered. What do you want, Mom? Her voice was cold, brittle. I'm calling to let you know I've sent you a certified letter. I've also emailed you a copy. You need to read it. If this is more of your guilt trip about the jewelry, it's not a guilt trip. It's a list of consequences. Read the letter, Vanessa, and read it carefully. You know what? I don't have time for your drama. My wedding is in 3 weeks, and I have a million things to do. Unlike you, I have a life. You also have a debt of $40,000 to me, I said calmly, and 60 days to repay it, or I'm taking legal action. Silence. You're threatening to sue me? Your own daughter? I'm holding you accountable. There's a difference. Oh my God. She laughed, that same sharp sound from before. You really are insane. Brandon was right about you. He said you'd try to sabotage my happiness because you're miserable and alone. Brandon has 2 ex-wives, $60,000 in gambling debt, and has been fired from 3 jobs for fraud. I said, my voice steady. He's using you, Vanessa. He's using your money, your credit, your desperate need to prove you're worthy of love. And the saddest part is, you can't even see it. You're lying. I hired an investigator. I have documentation. If you want to see it, I'll send it to you. But you won't look at it because that would mean admitting you're wrong, and we both know how much you hate that. I hate you, she screamed. You're a bitter, controlling, pathetic excuse for a mother, and I hope I never see you again. That's your choice, I said quietly. But Vanessa, the offer stands. If you want help, real help, I'm here, but I will not finance your destruction. Not anymore. I hung up while she was still yelling. The calls started that night. First from Vanessa, dozens of them, all going to voicemail. Screaming voicemails, crying voicemails, threatening voicemails. Then from Brandon, his voice smooth and manipulative, trying to convince me I was misunderstanding the situation, that Vanessa was just stressed, that we could work this out. I blocked both numbers. Then the texts came from other numbers, friends of Vanessa, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, all with variations of the same message. How dare you ruin your daughter's wedding? What kind of mother does this? You're going to regret this. I blocked those numbers too. My friend Patricia called on the 3rd day. Catherine, honey, I just heard. Are you okay? Patricia was my closest friend, someone who'd known me since Richard and I first moved into the neighborhood. She'd been there when he died, when I couldn't get out of bed for a week, when I'd forgotten how to exist without him. I'm okay, I said, surprised to find it was true. Actually, I'm better than okay. I ran into Karen from church. She said Vanessa's been telling everyone you've had a breakdown, that you're not thinking clearly, that the grief has made you paranoid. Of course she was. The gaslighting continued even in absentia. Patricia, can I ask you something? Honestly? Always. Have you noticed Vanessa treating me badly over the years? Be honest. There was a long pause. Yes, she finally said. For the last 5 or 6 years especially. The way she talks to you, talks about you. The way she dismisses your feelings. Richard's death changed her, but not in a good way. It's like she resented you for being the one who survived. That thought had occurred to me too, in the dark hours of night. That Vanessa had loved her father more than me, and when he died, I became a living reminder of what she'd lost. A scapegoat for her grief. Why didn't you say anything? Because you weren't ready to hear it. And because, Patricia hesitated, Because she's your daughter. That bond is sacred. I didn't want to be the person who made you choose between seeing the truth and loving your child. You can do both, I said softly. I'm learning that now. You can love someone and still acknowledge they're hurting you. 2 weeks before the wedding, Janet called with an update. Catherine, Vanessa's attorney, contacted me. She hired an attorney? Brandon's attorney, actually. He's representing both of them. They're claiming your actions constitute elder abuse and emotional manipulation. I almost laughed. Elder abuse? I'm 63 and completely mentally competent. I know. It's a desperate move. They're grasping at straws. Janet paused. However, they are willing to negotiate. They're offering to return $5,000 and drop all claims that you owe them anything if you'll agree to drop your demand for the jewelry reimbursement. No, Catherine. No. I'm not negotiating with someone who stole from me and then tried to paint me as the villain. The offer stands. Full reimbursement or legal action. You might not win in court. She's your daughter. Juries are sympathetic to family dynamics. I know. But it's not about winning. It's about drawing a line. I'm done letting people walk over me because we share DNA. Janet was quiet for a moment. Okay, I'll let them know. 3 days later, I received a Facebook message from Brandon. I'd forgotten he'd friend requested me months ago, and I'd accepted out of politeness, wanting to make an effort with my daughter's future husband. Catherine, this has gone too far. Vanessa is having panic attacks because of your threats. Her doctor had to prescribe anxiety medication. You're destroying her mental health over some old jewelry. Is that really what you want? To be the mother who ruined her daughter's wedding? I know you've been through a lot since Richard died. Grief can make people act in ways they later regret. I'm willing to overlook everything if you'll just stop this campaign against us. We can start fresh. I can help you see that Vanessa didn't mean to hurt you. She's just trying to build her own life. Please, for her sake, let this go. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed my response. Brandon, I've learned some interesting things about you. 2 ex-wives, $60,000 in gambling debt, 3 jobs you were fired from, a bankruptcy. You're a con artist who saw my daughter as an opportunity, someone with access to money, someone desperate enough to prove she's lovable that she'd believe your lies. You've isolated her from me, twisted her memories, convinced her I'm the enemy, and you've done it because you need her. She's your meal ticket, your way out of debt, your facade of respectability. Here's what's going to happen. This wedding will bankrupt her. Within a year, maybe 2, you'll leave her when the money runs out, or when you find someone else to manipulate. She'll be destroyed financially, emotionally, spiritually, and I won't be there to pick up the pieces because she burned that bridge. But I want you to know something. I'm sending her the documentation about your past. I'm sending it to her bridesmaids, her close friends, her brother. I'm making sure that when it all falls apart, she'll know I tried to warn her. And Brandon, if you ever contact me again, I'll file for a restraining order and send everything I know about you to the district attorney's office. Some of your past embezzlement cases might warrant a second look. Stay away from me. And God help you if you hurt my daughter more than you already have. I hit send and immediately blocked him. 1 week before the wedding, Thomas called. Mom, you're not going to believe this. What happened? Vanessa called Marcy. She was crying. Not angry, crying, actual sobbing. She said the venue is threatening to cancel the wedding because they're $60,000 behind on payments. My stomach dropped. $60,000? Apparently she and Brandon kept upgrading things, more flowers, better catering, an open bar, a videographer, a second photographer. They were paying for everything on credit, assuming they'd get enough cash gifts at the wedding to cover it. But the venue wants payment up front. That's not how any of this works, I murmured. Right. So now she's scrambling. She asked Marcy if we could loan her $20,000. What did Marcy say? We told her no. We have 2 kids, a mortgage, and student loans of our own. We don't have that kind of money to spare. And even if we did, he trailed off. Even if you did, you wouldn't enable this insanity, I finished. Exactly. Mom, she sounded desperate, really desperate. She even asked if we could take out a home equity loan. My God, I think reality is starting to hit her. Brandon apparently disappeared for 2 days last week. She said he was visiting a sick aunt, but Marcy thinks he was probably gambling. Did you send her the documentation about Brandon? I did. She claimed it was all lies, that you hired someone to fabricate evidence, but I could hear doubt in her voice. I closed my eyes. She's going to marry him anyway, isn't she? Probably. She's too proud to admit she was wrong. Canceling the wedding would mean facing everyone, admitting failure. It's easier to go through with it and deal with the consequences later. That's what I'm afraid of. Thomas was quiet for a moment. Mom, are you okay? Really? I am, I said, and meant it. I'm sad, heartbroken even, but I'm okay. For the first time in years, I'm choosing myself, and it feels right. Good, because you deserve that. You deserve peace. 4 days before the wedding, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Mrs. Morrison? This is Detective Sarah Chen with the Fraud Division. We received a report about identity theft involving your credit card. Do you have a few minutes to talk? My heart sank. Of course. It appears someone attempted to make several large charges to your credit card, a total of $43,000 over the past 2 months. The charges were declined due to the fraud alert you placed, but we've traced the attempts back to a business called Riverside Manor. Are you familiar with this business? Yes. It's a wedding venue. My daughter is getting married there this Saturday. There was a pause. And did you authorize these charges? No. I specifically told the venue I was not responsible for payment and that any charges to my name were fraudulent. I see, Mrs. Morrison. Based on your statement and the evidence we've collected, it appears that someone, either your daughter or her fiancé, has been using your identity to secure vendors and payment plans. That's a criminal offense. We'll need you to come down to the station to file a formal report. I felt sick. Do I have to? If you want to pursue charges, yes. If not, the case will remain open but without a complaining witness. It's unlikely to proceed. I thought about Vanessa, about the little girl she used to be, about the woman she'd become, about the choice I had to make. I'll file the report, I said finally, but I want to make something clear. I'm doing this to create a record, not necessarily to press charges. I want the option of legal recourse, but I'm not trying to send my daughter to jail. Understood. Can you come in tomorrow morning? I'll be there. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the ways I'd failed and all the ways I'd succeeded as a mother. I thought about Richard and what he would say if he were here. I thought about the sapphire ring my mother had worn, now gone forever. Mostly, I thought about Vanessa, about the moment everything had gone wrong, about whether I could have done something differently, about whether any of this was my fault. The answer, I realized, was complicated. Yes, I'd made mistakes. I'd been too soft sometimes, too generous, too eager to smooth over problems instead of addressing them. But I hadn't created Vanessa's entitlement, her cruelty, her willingness to hurt the people who loved her. Those were choices she'd made, and now she would face the consequences of those choices. Friday afternoon, the day before the wedding, Janet called again. Catherine, you need to hear this. The venue contacted me. Apparently, the wedding is off. What? Vanessa and Brandon showed up this morning to make a payment. They were short by $58,000. The venue gave them an ultimatum. Full payment by noon or the contract is void. They couldn't come up with the money. I sat down heavily on my couch. So there's no wedding? No wedding. At least, not at that venue. And Catherine, there's more. Brandon didn't take it well. According to the venue manager, he became belligerent, started yelling about lawyers and lawsuits. Security had to escort him out. Vanessa was apparently just frozen, in shock. Oh God. The manager said she sat in the lobby for 3 hours after Brandon left, just sitting there, not talking, not moving. Finally, one of the bridesmaids came and took her home. My maternal instinct kicked in immediately. I should go to her. Catherine, no. She made her choices. You can't rescue her every time. But she's my daughter. And she's an adult who stole from you, verbally abused you, and committed fraud using your identity. You filed a police report. If you go to her now, you undermine everything you've done to establish boundaries. I knew Janet was right. But knowing something intellectually and feeling it emotionally are two different things. That evening, my phone rang. Vanessa. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mom? Her voice was small, broken, nothing like the confident, sharp woman who'd stood in my kitchen 2 weeks ago. I'm here. The wedding's off. She wasn't crying. She sounded hollow, beyond tears. Everything's ruined. I heard. Brandon left. He said I was pathetic, that I couldn't even manage to pay for my own wedding, that he couldn't be with someone so incompetent. He took his stuff and left. I'm sorry. Are you? Her voice turned bitter. This is what you wanted, isn't it? To destroy my happiness? No, sweetheart. This is what I warned you about. Brandon was never going to make you happy. He was using you. You don't know that. I have evidence that says otherwise. But even without it, any man who abandons you the moment things get difficult isn't worthy of you. She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. I'm so scared, Mom. I have nothing. No fiancé. No wedding. $60,000 in debt from vendors I can't pay. My credit is destroyed. And I think I knew, deep down. I think I knew he was lying to me. But I wanted so badly to believe that someone could love me. My heart cracked open. Oh, Vanessa, I'm sorry about the jewelry. I'm sorry about everything I said. I'm sorry for being such a terrible daughter. You were right about all of it. You were right. And I was too proud to admit it. I closed my eyes, tears finally coming. Thank you for saying that. Can I? She took a shaky breath. Can I come home? Just for a few days. I can't be alone right now. This was the moment. The choice I'd been preparing for without realizing it. No, I said gently. What? No, Vanessa. You can't come home. Not right now. But I apologized. I said I was sorry. I know. And I believe you mean it. But saying sorry isn't enough. You stole from me. You hurt me deeply. You need to face the consequences of your actions, and if I let you come home now, I'm just enabling you again. So what am I supposed to do? Her voice was rising, panic seeping in. You're going to figure it out. You're going to deal with your debt. Talk to your creditors. Maybe get a second job. You're going to learn that actions have consequences and that people can't always bail you out. You're really not going to help me. I'm helping you by not helping you. Real love means letting you fail so you can learn to stand on your own. That's bullshit, she yelled. You're supposed to be my mother. You're supposed to support me. I am supporting you, just not in the way you want. I took a breath. Vanessa, I love you. I will always love you, but I will not let you destroy yourself, and I will not let you destroy me in the process. When you're ready to have an adult relationship built on mutual respect, I'll be here. Until then, you need to find your own way. So that's it? You're just abandoning me? No, I'm setting you free. There's a difference. I hung up before she could respond. 3 months later, I was planting bulbs in my garden when Thomas's car pulled into my driveway. My granddaughters, Emma and Sophie, tumbled out, running to hug me with the unbridled enthusiasm only children possess. Grandma, we missed you. Emma, age 7, wrapped her arms around my waist. We brought cookies. Sophie, 5, held up a container triumphantly. Thomas and Marcy approached more slowly, both smiling. Hey, Mom, Thomas said, kissing my cheek. You look good, relaxed. I feel good, I admitted. Come in. I'll put on tea. We settled in my living room, the girls coloring at the coffee table while the adults talked. Have you heard from Vanessa? Marcy asked carefully. She emails once a week. Brief updates. She moved into a small apartment with a roommate, got a second job bartending on weekends. She's meeting with a credit counselor to work out payment plans for her debt. How is she doing emotionally? I considered the question. She's struggling, but she's also growing, learning, taking responsibility. For the first time in her adult life, She's facing consequences instead of being rescued. Do you think you'll reconcile? Thomas asked. Maybe. Someday. But it has to be on the right terms. She has to genuinely change, not just apologize and revert back to old patterns. I looked at my son. I spent too many years of my life making myself small to accommodate other people's feelings. Your father's, Vanessa's, even yours. Sometimes, though you never demanded it. I'm done with that. Thomas reached over and squeezed my hand. Good. The doorbell rang. I frowned. I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the window, I could see a young woman holding a package. I opened the door. Can I help you? Delivery. For Catherine Morrison. Signature. Required. I signed and took the package. A large box, surprisingly heavy. The return label just said V.M. My hands shook as I brought it inside and set it on the dining room table. Thomas and Marcy joined me. Curious. Should I open it? I asked. Only one way to find out? Marcy said. I cut through the tape and opened the flaps. Inside, wrapped carefully in tissue paper, were 5 jewelry boxes. My breath caught as I opened the first one. My mother's sapphire ring. Or rather, a perfect recreation. The same design, the same stone, the same setting. One by one, I opened the other boxes. My grandmother's pearls, the anniversary bracelet, the emerald earrings, a new diamond tennis bracelet, slightly different from the original but beautiful. At the bottom of the box was a letter in Vanessa's handwriting. Mom, these aren't the originals. I know that. I can never give back what I took. But I used my entire savings, everything I had left, to have these pieces recreated as closely as possible. It took me 3 months to save enough. 3 months of working 2 jobs and living on ramen and learning what sacrifice actually means. You were right. About Brandon. About me. About everything. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't deserve that yet. But I wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what I did. I understand what you tried to tell me, and I'm trying to become someone worthy of being your daughter again. I love you. I'm sorry, and thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to. Vanessa. I held the sapphire ring up to the light, watching it catch the sun. It wasn't the original. It would never carry my mother's touch, my father's love, Richard's devotion. But it was something else, evidence of growth, of change, of a daughter finally understanding the weight of her actions. What are you going to do? Thomas asked softly. I slipped the ring onto my finger. It fit perfectly. I'm going to wear it, I said. And when she's ready, when she's truly ready, I'm going to tell her about the day she was born, about how I held her and made a promise to love her no matter what, about how that promise doesn't mean tolerating abuse, but it does mean believing in second chances. Are you going to call her? I looked at my son, at his wife, at my beautiful granddaughters coloring peacefully on my floor. I looked at my home, finally feeling like my sanctuary again instead of a museum of grief. I looked at the ring on my finger, new and old at the same time. Not yet, I said, but soon, when the time is right. Because that's what real love is, not the desperate, enabling, sacrificial love I'd practiced for so many years, but something harder and wiser. Love that requires effort from both sides. Love that says, I will be here when you're ready, but I won't destroy myself waiting. Love that knows when to hold on and when to let go. The sapphire caught the light again, and for just a moment, I could swear I heard my mother's voice, the same words she'd said to me decades ago when I'd struggled with my own choices. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the space to find themselves. I'd spent 3 months in that space. So had Vanessa. And slowly, carefully, we were both finding our way back to solid ground. The story wasn't over. But for the first time in years, I believed it might have a hopeful ending, not perfect, not painless, but real. And real was enough. That evening, after Thomas and his family left, I sat on my back porch watching the sun set. I wore all 5 pieces of the recreated jewelry, the sapphire ring, the pearls, the bracelet, the earrings. They felt different from the originals, lighter somehow, as if they carried less history and more possibility. My phone buzzed. An email from Vanessa. "Did you get the package?" I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed, "Yes. Thank you. They're beautiful." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "Can I call you sometime?" Not to ask for anything, just to talk. I looked at the jewelry on my wrist, around my neck, in my ears. I thought about the woman I'd been desperate to be needed, terrified of being alone, willing to sacrifice everything for the illusion of family harmony. And I thought about the woman I was becoming, stronger, wiser, willing to stand in the truth even when it hurt. "Yes," I typed. "But let's start with emails. Small steps, small steps," she replied. "I can do that." I set down my phone and watched the last of the sunset fade into twilight. Somewhere in the distance, a bird sang its evening song. My garden needed weeding. My house needed cleaning. Tomorrow I'd have coffee with Patricia and tell her about the jewelry. Next week, I'd scheduled lunch with Janet to thank her for her support. Life was full of small, ordinary moments, and for the first time in years, that felt like enough. I touched the sapphire ring, thinking of my mother, my father, Richard, all the people who'd loved me and left. Grief would always be part of my story, but it wasn't the whole story. The whole story was still being written, and this time, I was holding the pen. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here.